Hi, this is Alvaro Jaramillo, and I just was going to post something on Facebook about the identification of Elaenias, given that this bird was banded today in Tadoussac in Quebec, and I had some thoughts about what it could be. The photos of that bird um, caught today, it's October 26, 2021, but were by Francois Xavier Grandmont, and so thanks for the use of those photos. So, little background, there are a lot of different Elaenias in the New World, and there's masses of identification issues in the various species. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some have, crests, others don't. Um, I kind of whittled it down to two species that the Quebec bird could be, and those are the two most likely based on their migratory tendencies, which is the Chilean white-crested and small-billed Elaenia. There are other options, lesser Elaenia, Caribbean Elaenia, but it just doesn't look quite right for those. I say all of this with a grain of salt because the identification of these birds is actually really tricky, and you never know. Maybe there's something else going on here that's more complicated. But so let's make a sort of simplifying, educated assumption that we're dealing with just these two. And why do I say Chilean white-crested Elaenia? Well, if you see this map on the left from work that was done by Jimenez et al. About the migration of southern Elaenias, you see right here this pale gray. This is a different population, different subspecies than the white-crested Elaenias that are in the northern and central Andes that are in black. It turns out, and also the desert here, turns out that there are probably at least two different species here, and this one is a different species again. So although this isn't official yet, we're going to talk about this southern population as the Chilean Elaenia, and they look, sound, and act different than the true white-crested Elaenias up here in the Andes, okay? And these are the ones that migrate longer distances and are the ones that might, you know, go wrong way from up here and go up into North America. So that is the Chilean white-crested Elaenia. Um, then there's the small-billed Elaenia, and you see it over here, breeding, distribution, and then winter. So it's also a long distance migrant. It actually reaches farther north in the winter than the Chilean Elaenia. The other thing is that Chilean Elaenia is mainly Patagonian, so quite far south or central part of Chile, Argentina. While the small build is farther north and farther east in its breeding distribution, so it is the standard breeding Elaenia in much of the northeastern Argentina, Uruguay, southern Brazil, Paraguay, and parts of Bolivia. All right, so that gives you the background and gives you the idea that these are long distance migrants, and therefore if they went the wrong way in their migration, they could wind up in North America. Also, this time of year, October, November, is when these Elaenias are flying south, heading towards breeding grounds, and that's when they do the wrong way migration and wind up north in Canada or the US, right? So here are two in the hand Chilean and small-billed Elaenias that both I banded ages ago. I would actually ignore these primary numbers as they seem to be off by one, and just give you a thought of a few of the things that over the years seem to work as identification points for these two species. So Chilean white-crested is this one on the left. A couple of things. One thing is look at the peaked head, the real crested look that they have, and basically always, unless they're juveniles, show white in the crest. Specifically, if you see them from the front, And the white is actually almost never hidden on Chilean Elaenia. A couple other things. The overall tone of color is a little greener, little bit more yellowish on them or green on them than small-billed Elaenia. That tends to go towards the gray and the brown, but overlap in that general coloration, just like as you would see in Epidnax flycatchers. There are two really bold wing bars on Chilean Elaenia, and then below that, there's a broad black base to the secondaries that shows up as a sort of a wide band. The primary extension is actually quite long, and there are two gaps in the wings. The gap that is closer to the tertials is actually quite big, much bigger than the one that's the next one over, that it's towards the tip of the primaries. So two big gaps in the primaries, very long primaries, big black area behind the two bold wing bars. Okay, and then small-billed Elaenia is super similar, and on the whole, it tends to have a rounded crown look, so flatter crowned than the Chilean, and it often hides the white on the crest. It's in there, but you don't see it most of the time. The wing bars are bold, but they tend to look like little spots. So they're spotty, as if it's just a different shape of white on them that starts sort of getting cut up rather than this bold, crisp, solid wing bar of a Chilean Elaenia. And then there is a third wing bar right up on top that shows up. In some cases it's hidden by the back feathers, other times you just see a couple little pale spots, and other times you just see a full-on third wing bar. The dark area at the base of the secondaries is really variable. It can be like Chilean Elaenia, but most times it actually right in the outer secondaries out here, um, it's it's not as wide as the towards the tertials. So it's more like a triangle if it's there at all. Sometimes the yellow goes up all the way, so it's really quite variable. Not so variable on Chilean Elaenias, with the black being pretty consistent. Long primaries, on the whole, they look shorter. The primary extension is shorter, and those gaps that I mentioned are not nearly as significant as on Chilean Elaenia, and there's more work needs to be done to sort out that gap distribution. So here's a sad case of window strikes that I found in parts of forested parts of southern Chile of Chilean Elaenia. Couple of things to note here. So this bird, look at how long that primary projection is, and also the big gap here, and then the smaller gap towards the wingtip. Bold, black, well, I mean dark area beyond the two wing bars. Two wing bars, very green toned, even in this dead bird, that crested look. And then these two that again show the green tone above, and look how bold those white crests are. And these are birds that are, they're not alive, they're not excited in any way, and showing you the crest specifically. It's just sort of the standard look of the crest if you see a Chilean Elaenia from above. In the field, same thing, two wing bars, nice crested look. You can see the white in there, long primary extension, and what I've been talking about. This one, these are November birds. One is from, I think this one is from Patagonia. This one's from farther north in Chile. And white shows on the pointed crest on this bird on the right, bold wing bars, only two of them. And this one's got a more restricted black. So you see that feature of the dark. The base of the secondaries is probably at the most a real, well, make a pun, secondary feature. But it does seem to hold. And long primary extensions, the big old gap in there, smaller gap next to it. All right, so now we're into small build. Now that you've seen pictures of Chileans, you'll sort of notice this more rounded head look. So there is a little crown peak, but not much, and the white doesn't show that well at all, if any. Okay. Um, this bird here has the classic spotted look to the primaries, sorry, the wing bars, and then that third wing bar is just poking through, and it doesn't look quite solid. It often doesn't look solid. That's normal, but very spotted. Um, to me, just a slightly more grayish looking bird. And in this case, this is a more classic small-billed Elaenia with a lot of yellow coming up and really constricting the dark beyond the third wing bar in this case, the lower wing bar. This bird on the right, these are December individuals. This one's got better wing bars, but you can see that third wing bar, and otherwise, you can't get to this feature here, that head being less crested than on the Chilean Elaenia. And on the whole, they're pretty darn similar to the Chilean Elaenias, but there's just some subtle features that seem to work to separate them. Okay, so you've had that look at the two species, and then you're asked, okay, what is this one? And if you go to the head, go to the wing bars, you might start putting it together, right? What do you see here? Two wing bars. Oh, there's like a little third one poking out, kind of rounded head, not the real crested head with the white obviously showing. So, um, as you might guess, it's a small-billed Elaenia taken in Uruguay during the breeding season when there should be absolutely no Chilean Elaenias in that area. Okay, so the Tadoussac bird, what is it? Um, it's it's a bird that's in the hand, and there's DNA um, information that's going to be available as they did take some sample of a feather, I think. So in the end, we'll know what it is, but I'm going to make my educated guess here. And it's sometimes good to stick your neck out, and even if you're wrong in the end, you've learned something. So I take everything I say with a grain of salt, but it's sort of what I've been thinking about over the last few years looking at these Elaenias in South America. Um, so I'm seeing a rounded crown, not much white showing through here, especially a bird in the hand would look pretty crested. It'd be, it's often when flycatchers show their crest is when they're in the hand. Um, three wing bars, right? The two wing bars, kind of a little spotty look to them. Third wing bar, you see what I'm getting at? I think this is a small-billed Elaenia. Um, it good solid primary projection extension there sort of, and I cannot see the spacing, but that is also sort of somewhat subjective, the spacing in terms of what's really big versus not as big. Also, think I'm seeing the yellow edging going right up towards the lowest wing bar, which is another small-billed Elaenia feature. I can see the poking out of the third wing bar there, and the spotty nature of these wing bars. Um, Again, thanks to Francois Xavier Grandmont for these photos. Thanks also to the biologists for making this information available. Another set of pictures of the bird from Tadoussac, and marginal amount of white showing on that bird there in front, as far as when you compare it to Chilean Elaenia, spotty nature to those wing bars, little third wing bar there. I think this is actually a small-billed Elaenia, which, if so, I think is the second North American record, assuming the identification of the Chicago bird is correct, which I think it is. So this is a fantastic find, and in fact, it's perhaps a better find than a Chilean white-crested Elaenia. So I think it might be a small build, and thanks for your attention there. Hopefully that kind of put some perspective into the identification. Much thanks to the Observatoire d'Oiseaux de Tadoussac, the local bird observatory there that is cataloging, tracking, and understanding the movement of a lot of northern species, especially finches. They were alerting us to a massive white-winged crossbill movement happening this season. And they're also, it's the place that's famous for having seen some of the most massive migrations of warblers ever detected on the continent. So thank you to them for putting the word out and for their research on these migratory birds. And on my end, if you're interested in workshops on bird identification, go to my website, alvarosadventures.com, look at events, and I have 3 different workshops coming up this November: waterfowl, sparrows, and gulls, large white-headed gulls, which would be applicable, the last one, to anywhere in North America. So thank you very much.